Hello and welcome to PCB Chat, where we talk with experts across the printed circuit design, manufacturing, and electronic supply chain fields. I'm Mike Buteau, president of PCEA. Regular readers of PCDNF and Circuits Assembly magazine will recognize today's guest. John Burkhert Jr. is the author of Designer's Notebook, the monthly column on PCB design engineering. Over his long career, John has worked on everything from military to telecom to consumer hardware and automotive. His experiences range from RF to high-speed digital design. We first ran across John on LinkedIn, where he started publishing his design tips and tutorials. I should add, Cadence noticed him too, and now he's published almost 150 columns to its blog, which can be found under resources.pcb.cadence.com. John, welcome to PCB Chat.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me.
So while you are a design engineer of considerable prowess, I've actually invited you on today to talk about the so-called soft side of engineering, also known as people skills. Recently, you posted a 1,250-word piece titled, "There May Come a Time When PCB Design Requires People Management Skills." It struck a chord with more than a few designers and engineers who shared similar anecdotes to your page. But let's not jump too far ahead. Can you just kind of recap the story for our audience?
All right, Mike. It doesn't put everybody in the best light, but I'll try to make it understandable in that there may be language barriers. There may be people who have pride issues or disillusionment or whatever it is, that their own personal struggles that they're going through. You can't always know if they've understood exactly what you've said or what you've written or what you've given them. But getting past these barriers, at some point you've made that connection, even if they're just smiling and being amicable, going along, even if they didn't understand you or something. But if you've worked back and forth with somebody and they are, reasonably literate to the degree that they need to be, just come out of their shell a little bit, they might be doing better. But in this case, I was working with somebody, and it is a board that I've done, I think the buyers told me we did 70 iterations of this on the same form factor in this.
Only 70?
Yeah, it's trying to get a Bluetooth and a Wi-Fi and a FM radio all working in the same little, area, all on the same chip. And so that coexistence was hard to get. And also working it out for every kind of customer that might want to use it, so those reference designs. And so we got into a design of this same thing that I'd seen many times in my 6.5 years there. And when I did the placement, it was clear that a couple of things, that we didn't have a clock because there were two names for the clock. And the other thing was that the two connectors, the mating connectors on the bottom of this were, I believe they're 60-pin connectors, and they sit on a test fixture that is the same every time. It's a reusable thing. So when something comes in and the pins don't meet, pin 1 versus pin 2, and pin, so the entire thing is backwards as though it were the mating connector on the other side of the board or something. But we know that placement wasn't the issue. It had to be the connector because our EMN files actually place those hard placed components. So it was a very neat approach that Qualcomm took to all of this. But because of that, I knew for absolutely certain that those two connectors were wrong, that you got the mating connector or something, that they just didn't fit. And so I left them there, and I made a bullet out of that, and I made a bullet out of the missing pins for the clock, and then something else that I just don't recall. It wasn't as material. But time came and went, and I had asked him to make this change through a bullet point of 3 different bullet points, then a memo of its own, and then in person, he's over there, and I say, why don't we connect this clock? It's, one of the main things we need, isn't it? And he goes, don't worry about it. And I go, oh, well, okay, I guess we don't have to worry about that. And I won't be nagging him. I've already told him 3 times, And so we get to the design review, And all around the room, people are going, come on, guy, I thought we were going to talk about that diplex. We were going to change those two diodes to resistor. We were going to do this and do that. And nobody got what they wanted. And so I didn't feel like it was just me, or that I was not able to communicate, or that they were just not getting traction with Guy. And so later down the road, I just quit working on it. I had other things, GPS and so forth. And anybody who would come into my room, I would tell them about that. But at this point, I wasn't really breaking it to my manager so much, because he was really new. And it was funny that I had worked with Lance and Jim and all these people at previous companies, and they had brought me along finally to the company that was acquired by Qualcomm. Well, finally, Jim walks back into my little world and tells me that he's been at his own little startup in Florida, and that he was learning what we were doing and might work together again. Well, fast forward a little while, my manager, that was my manager at the prior company that got acquired, he left. He went to Apple, and so did some others. So I thought that maybe someday I'll be there, but that left me at a point where I only had like the vice president. So my supervisor, the manager, and the director were both gone. And so during this period of time, I started up on this job, and that's when they introduced the new director. And he goes, "Oh yeah, I'm from Florida." And I said, "Oh, Kent, do you know my friend Jim?" And suddenly we're like long lost cousins or something, right? We're just, "Oh yeah, he's my CEO." Well, Jim never mentioned he was the CEO, but right, he said it was his startup. But anyway, so I had a real good ally there in manager. I didn't have a direct manager, but I didn't really want to bother him with something as trivial as, he's not doing his thing. But when it came to the point where this is all I have left to do on this board is wire it wrong, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to take a stand and tell anybody that'll come into my room. We all have little private offices there. That this is what we're doing. We're not going to route this board. I'm going to work on the GPS and do this other stuff. And finally, one of my people come in on my donut club. He's a real nice guy and pretty big guy. And he asks me, "How's my board going?" I wonder why he wants to know. But anyway, I tell him, "No, I stopped working on it because the connectors were wrong." And he's livid to hear this. He does not want to hear this because he's got a board that is depending on Guy's board. And so to be this far down the schedule and to be wrong and have to start over on not only this, it's 120 pins that are wrong, but you've got to rename all of them. You've got to do and whoever's doing his board is going to have to take a few steps back. So he goes, "Well, have you talked to Ken about this?" I said, "Well, no, but I have sent messages to, Guy's management and so forth. It has escalated where I could." But yeah, it wound up being my director talking to his director before they would buckle down and say, "This has clearly got to be done before you get your board done, and you're not getting it unless you, make the schematic and the symbols all match the outline drawing." So it was a pretty strong mechanical group that was doing that. So we had a high confidence in the number of times we've done that board that I was right. And so when we got the board fabricated, finally, did all of that, he came back and said, "John, did you know that the clock wasn't connected?" I said, "Yeah, you told me not to worry about it." It's like it dawned on me that I was still dealing with a reasonable person at that time, and we said, "You've got a clock. You'll figure out a way to insert that clock, or something that you're doing here is part of the deal." And so it's like, wow. And so that's when I kind of felt most really bad for both of us. But I didn't get any blowback from it because, yeah, it's just how things went. But I did finally do the next 2 or 3 boards with him, and they all started coming out better because we came to an agreement where I would tell him about something a total of 5 times, and that 5th time I would say, "Now this is the last time you will hear about you've got the wrong component or you've got this or that. I'm just going to let it go." And we agreed to do that, and the first time 5 warnings came up and I told him, this is your last, he really felt kind of bad. Oh man, really? I'm out of warnings now. But with that in mind, the other two engineers that were doing board design would see a guy come, and away they'd go, man. He'd be running across the way. And another one was down in San Diego. No, I've got 5 boards on my plate. I really can't help you out with that. I worked with him more and more, it seemed like, because I was the junior one there, frankly. They'd been at their companies longer. They had acquired this person by like carving out the Bluetooth assets of some other company. It wasn't, they bought the whole thing, and it almost felt like they maybe betrayed him in his a previous job and let him, be sold off to these big companies. Are different to work for. You don't know everybody. You don't know everything you can get out of all these things. The point was that I didn't really go to my management for support too much because they've got a lot of things to learn and do at that period of time. Had it been some of the other people who had leaned on me and recruited me to that company, I'd be, come on, Joe, why isn't, this guy getting his thing done? So go and talk to his manager and make this hope. Otherwise, I can't do my job. And so just talking to him and being dismissed on these concerns, right. Then my only way to react to that was just not work on it anymore. And finally, and telling everybody, telling that person who was deeply affected, in particular, that got the ball rolling and getting this fixed. So that was a lesson learned in one, patience, but also trying to empathize is why, and maybe it was the shame of now I've got to go and tell somebody else that their board is messed up too. Or, it's just, I can't really put myself in his mind, but you can try to at least understand that, there's something that motivates these people. And I was looking for what it was just to get to be task oriented, and to say, this is what it's going to take to get this done. And this is how I'll work with you, and setting boundaries at that point. And so that worked out, I guess, okay, in the end.
Well, John, your story really resonated with quite a few of the folks that you are connected with on LinkedIn. They started chiming in with some of their own comments and anecdotes. And it reminds us again that communication really is an art. But I would say for the artless, and there are lots of them, we have to devise ways to stay focused on the bigger goals and get the job done. Would you say, and you've worked for a lot of really big companies, right? I mean, GoPro, Google, Apple, Qualcomm,
Microsoft. Yeah, that's all.
Right. Without picking on one company or another, could you say that in your time and across all these different jobs, you found a particular structure that seemed to be the best in terms of ensuring that the information that needed to get shared got shared in a time sensitive way, but also in a way that sort of reduced the amount of what I would call ego bruising really involved, right? I mean, if it weren't for egos, we would have never done all the things that we've done. No one ever goes to space without people saying, hey, look, we can get somebody in space. I mean, that takes brilliant engineering, but also just a lot of belief in yourself and maybe a little bit more. So, I mean, I don't want to underestimate the value of thinking big and feeling like, you're right and everybody else is wrong. That said, have you ever come across a way that you say, okay, this company really sort of gets it in terms of getting these different design disciplines and engineering disciplines to all work and row in the same direction?
By quoting a CEO and then filling in why he said that, I might be able to shed some light on that. It was something that a guy said at Spectrian when we were trying to go public, right? And he said, you're not going to suffer for any not having software or not having quick turn boards. Everything you need to succeed, you're going to get. Okay, you're going to ask for it. We're going to do what we can do because we're going to go public or we're going to hit the wall going 100 miles per hour. There's no waning and slowly dying company that, is clawing. No, we're going 100, give it all you've got. We're going to spend what it takes. And when we make our splash, they change the company name, they change the company culture. He was on the PA. Remember when PAs were inside companies and Doris, please phone number 77, so so you'd have a receptionist that would talk and nobody else would. Well, he took over that, and every Monday he'd tell us exactly what the company is doing, whether we'd make a good short, or something like that. So yeah, he was a very that kind of oversharing CEO that fosters that kind of communication throughout the company, and says, "Go get them. We're a small team. There are bigger companies that spend more on tissue paper than we're worth, And so we're going to change the world, in our little space. Let's go do that." And they did. They got Qualcomm as a customer. They, built out the cell phone network and 2G, 3G, and so on, before becoming some of, getting sold off. But yeah, it was that time to have a corporate doctor come in and give us that rah-rah and give us the free reign to, if we need an auto router, so what? Let's route or rent it, or, hire somebody that's going to use it, pull in and resource or do what you have to do. If you don't have it and you can get it, and that's when a small company that's, still spending their betas, funding or whatever. When you're working with someone like Google, it's like fail fast. Get out there, be small and scrappy while you can, and don't pay attention to the little things. Look at the bigger picture. And at some point, we're going to hold your feet to the fire and require you to do things in a more documented way and stuff, and become bureaucratic. They do this incubation and they pull you through. So it has to be scaled to what the company can do. But right, we had the right CEO at the right time that just came out and gave me an outlook, and the people that I'd worked with, we all shared that. And so it is really starts at the top and percolates down. And I think that was the best. I would say that the most together engineering group was Qualcomm, though. Just their methodology, the fact that they could reach across borders. They were already set for this pandemic because of their dispersed workforce. So that's the big thing about big companies, is that they have work away from one another, not just different buildings, but different cities and all of that. So yeah.
I've always loved the phrase "fail fast." That pretty much describes my baseball career.
Yeah.
So, so last thing, and you didn't ask me to plug this, but I want to bring this up. A year or so ago, you worked on and produced I think it was a 16 section tome, really, on printed circuit board design, and I know that that's available on the Cadence blog as well. Can you briefly talk about what prompted you to do that?
Writing almost everything I knew, it kind of leaves me in a space now where I don't have as much to even think about writing. And I'm looking at some more esoteric topics. However, there have been a number of people, many thousands of followers myself, nothing like Cadence has, but I do get a lot of reader mail. And they said, "Do you have something like that?" And then pandemic came along, and I had the hours to do something like that, the inclination. And Cadence was behind that. And this is breaking news that I don't know that they've shared yet, so I don't know when your blog, your post comes out. But they're going to make that into something that's more portable for people, like an ebook. So you don't have to go to that, and you can have this copy on your own server or something. And I said, well, maybe I could update it. That thing's a year old. But I'm not updating it at this point. But they did just let me know that some of the people had asked me, was there a way to make that to go, so that they don't have to be online to get that? And I said, yes, there will be soon, I suppose.
Awesome. Well, congratulations again. And the blog is available at resources.pcb.cadence.com. If you're looking for John's series on PCB design and layout, look under the word section. It's really section 1 to 16. And
PCB design from start to finish is the title of that.
yep.
And funny thing, before we had any sort of really recognized shortages going on now, like we have now, the first thing I mention is talk to your vendor, show them your stack up, make sure they've got material. And the last thing, it's a whole chapter, vendor management. And that's when you kick it off and to keep them going. I mean, I've got vendors here in Sunnyvale, And I just get on my bike and go down there. I've taped it out. I'm going to see you guys in cam. Anything looks weird, I left a little piece of silk screen from some other board way far away off the side of my, and I didn't notice that. Well, yeah, scrub that and keep working. And so I do like working with our local vendors if we can, but sometimes they're not up to the type of board that we'll do. So there's easy boards, there's HDI. Yeah, we have to go where the best prices and lead times are. So, and that's not always China, right? As an off-topic thing, we were diversifying before diversifying was cool over at GoPro. So we have shops in Mexico, Vietnam, and so forth, and over in Shenzhen. So because I think it was tariffs that were driving us to build stuff for Americas, but now it's just how things are, right? It's a big world, and yet it's a small world.
Well, speaking of off topic, if for whatever reason you don't trust John with your or advice on printed circuit boards, maybe you trust him on biking, because I sure have. I've gone to him for advice on bike procurement. So anyway, that's a topic for another day. Our guest today has been Senior PCB Design Engineer John Burkhert Jr. And I want to also thank our sponsor, PCB West, the leading conference and exhibition for printed circuit design and design engineering, coming October 4th to the 7th to the Santa Clara, California Convention Center. Learn more at PCBWest.com. For PCB Chat, this is Mike Buteau. Have a nice day.